The 5 simple steps to fisting and why I'm not going to teach you that today. So, my name is Victoria Bartovich, and this is my podcast, The Evolutionary Edge of Eros. And I want to talk a little bit today about the world that we're living in and the steps that we take as we're going into the realm of sexuality. And this is a similar thing for me when I first started out, wanting to understand what sacred sexuality was, wanting to deepen this understanding I was having around sexuality. Like, I started to have these experiences with my self pleasure and also when I was with other people, and they were very like powerful and really opening up something. And it was through the sexual acts that things were opening. And so I started to go on this process of like, okay, well, I need to learn how to squirt then. I need to know how to touch my P spot and my Z spot and whatever else there fucking is to get closer to these mysteries and to understand the power of what was happening through my own sexuality. And the deeper I went in and I kept finding these videos, like we see now, tips of fisting or 5 steps to give the best blowjob or have the best anal or whatever other thing we see on the internet, and how to find these different spots in your vagina and what they create. And then I went and did a training over in Brazil around sexuality. And we started to explore these different spots. And really, what was coming through for me and what they were teaching us was like these spots are not a spot that you touch that create orgasms. They're actually the experience of creating, like, awakening erectile tissue inside of the vaginal canal. And that was actually activating and opening different things. And that this G spot could actually be quite a large patch of erectile tissue inside of the vaginal canal. And it wasn't always showing up in the same space. And even by accessing it didn't guarantee squirting, it didn't guarantee orgasmic experience, and that squirting didn't actually equal orgasms. It was very eye-opening very quickly for me, and even then that was sort of like the beginning of the slippery slope into recognizing that the powerful experiences I was having actually had nothing to do really with the experience of being able to touch certain parts of myself or being able to access certain parts of the body, or particular sexual acts. It was actually inside of the experience and being able to let go to the trance, being able to let go to this experience of letting sex and eros drive me instead of recognizing that I needed to do something. It was like the being actually allowed more of this potency to come online. And I guarantee you that all of my peers that are making these videos on YouTube are very much aware that these sexual acts are not the thing that's creating powerful sex for people. But what they are recognizing is that there is a process of people needing to understand the body in a certain way to access more of these states and more of this eros that is available to them. And sometimes I feel like some of my gripe with this stuff is that I feel like it takes us further off the track to where we actually want to go. And there's a sadness for me in the reactivity of like these bait posts that we actually experience, where it's like, if you see 5 steps for fisting, you're going to get hooked in because the reptilian brain is driven for that. And actually, what people are really seeking is like how to have powerful experiences of authentic sex. And authentic sex is not happening through going with a woman into with your fist and pausing the video as you go into someone's vagina in this way. Like, that is not what's going to create the experience of being able to connect into a woman's body and open up the yoni to be experiencing the potency and the power of any particular sexual act. And so this is some of the stuff that's like really burns me. I had a call with a guy last week that was giving me some recommendations on my podcast, and he said, yours is the same genre as this other podcast that I know posts a lot of those videos of like get fisted, have anal, whatever. And I was just like, wow, like, I don't even know if this is the same genre anymore. Like, some of the experiences that I've had inside of my journey of sacred sexuality and teaching this work, like, I have never offered a workshop or anything, any teaching around how to give a good blowjob. And I created a year-long certification in how to be a sex and intimacy coach and a practitioner in this way. And not one single module was on how to give a good blowjob or anal or fisting or any of those things. Because my deepest belief is that we can find our way into our eros when we let go of some of those understandings and some of those teachings. And I would love to see more of that in the world, like I actually had a bit of a memory come back for me back in 2017. I still had the same belief. I still didn't want to like teach in this way. And I did a 4-week couples tantric exploration, basically, for them to connect with their beloved. And we had about maybe 8 couples or something like that. And each week we're just introducing them to the different tools. And then on the final week, I said to my partner who I was running it with, I was like, right, we're going to give them a transmission of our self pleasure, and just like, I'm going to do it. We'll do it at the same time, but we'll witness each other in the experience. And we're going to start off the workshop with this. And then I wrote an email and said, hey, like, come in. We're going to go really deep into like ritual space, and like come in and feel whatever's alive for you. Take a seat, and we'll go from there. Anyway, they come in, and they sit down in their usual couples. Like, we've already got 3 weeks of rapport with them now. They know us, they like us, they trust us, they feel what we're about. And I start to play the music, and then I'm just dancing. I haven't taken my clothes off. No, my partner had taken his top off, but he still had his bottoms on. And we're just connecting in and touching ourselves and being with our eros, and he's witnessing me, I'm witnessing him. And it's super beautiful and quite PG, really, but very intimate. You know, it's very much like letting them into an experience of us in ritual. Anyway, so we go into this experience, and we're going back and forth of witnessing one another. And I just start to notice that like the women were leaving, and I was like, oh, maybe they're going to the bathroom, something's happening there. And one by one, and then I like opened my eyes at one point and looked around, and there was like the men were sitting there and all their women were out of the room. And I was like, okay, something's going on. So I call the transmission to a close, and I go, right, I'm going to go outside and just like see what's going on. So I invite the women back in, and I receive all their feedback. And it's just like, they're like, I just don't think we should have been watching that. That was too intimate. And, it's not right. We shouldn't have been here if you were going to do that. And like, I just received and received and received like pretty much criticism of their experience, and said it made them feel uncomfortable, and um, made them feel weird inside. And I said to them at one point, I was like, can I ask here who's watched pornography on their computer before? And every single one of them reached their hand up. And I said, do you feel like that this is something that you, oh, my thing's going off, something that you experience as uncomfortable when you witness this? And they said no. And I said, okay, so but you actually are okay with witnessing sexual acts happen, but you're uncomfortable to be in the intimacy of two people just witnessing themselves in their eros without taking their clothes off, without touching their genitals, just being in their eros and witnessing each other. And it was just this big aha moment of just like breaking through. And all the women, they were just like, oh wow, like, I'm so sorry, like I can see that you actually are trying to offer us something outside of that experience of like pornographic understanding. And I think what was really confronting was the intimacy and the connection, and this sense of like, um, what would it mean if I actually revealed myself to my beloved in this way? And for me, this is really the depth of what I yearn for in sexuality. It's just like, what happens when we let through all these archetypes that are happening inside of us, and let ourselves be seen for who we truly are, beyond these labels of like mother, sister, brother, husband, father, mother. It's like there's so many things that we need to be in the world for other people. And when we actually drop all those things and come into the moment of not even needing to be husband and wife, or boyfriend and girlfriend, or whoever they need us to be for one another, truth can actually upwell. And when we don't need to be predictable, and when we don't need to be anything or anyone for the other person, that's when eros is actually really free to move through us. And what deeply excites me inside of sexuality is when we are safe enough to be with that part of ourselves in front of somebody that is willing to just be with whatever comes through. And even if they think it's a little scary, or that's a little bit intimidating, or they're not sure what to do, it's like, that is the potency. When emotions start to move, when like the body starts to go in a completely different way than it usually does, or you say, and this is a very common practice in my bedroom with my partner, for us to say like, okay, I'm just going to speak, because what it means is like, what I'm about to say doesn't fully make sense to me, so don't expect it to make sense to you. And don't take anything I say to heart. And it's just letting the voice of this part of ourselves run through, because when we do that, when we let that come, it's like the relationship can open up and expand and hold more of what is really possible. And this is not just like a primary partner experience. I believe that we could be having this when we're making love with friends, when we're making love with a new person in our lives. It's like, this is the truth of what sex is. It's not 10 tips to having a great blowjob. It is the experience of just letting through more of this eros. And we don't have to be so responsible for this eros. Like, something happens when we actually get access to this energy. And I've shared this on previous podcasts. Like, what I believe is happening is when we're not being driven by our personality of like, this is who I am in my sexual persona, let me express this to you. It's like something else can come through, and that is the energy of the Kundalini, the force of the life force energy that is available on this planet, and how we can actually open and channel that and move that through our systems. And the more we do that, the more we clear through some of the shame and the baggage that collects and sticks to us as human beings. And the more we are able to let that run through us without judgment, without needing to understand it, without even needing to unpack it so much, the more of your sexuality will be revealed to you, and you'll figure out who you are as a deeply sexual being. And that's it. Like, I've been like sitting with, even chatting to people about my YouTube channel and my podcast, and them saying to me, you just go onto the other people's podcasts or YouTube channels inside of your niche, and you look at what titles have got 1 million views, and then you bring them back onto your page, and you use the same title, and then you share from this similar sort of topics, and it's like, I don't want to fucking do that. Like, I cannot tell you how much this hurts my soul to even think like that, because for me, that's not the evolutionary edge of Eros. That is like, this is like the like capitalism and like the patriarchy and like insanity just coming in and trying to copy and paste what is actually coming up from the fucking earth, which is like this fucking Shakti, this energy of like Eros that just wants to fucking blast through consciousness. And when that comes through, it's so magnetic and it's so potent and so powerful. That's why people are copying it, because that is why it's getting 1 million views. That, like, I don't believe that as creators, as content creators, as entrepreneurs, whatever we want to call ourselves, that we need to be going on and looking what has been successful to try to recreate that. I believe that we can actually stay in connection to the mastery path that's moving through us. And that mastery path might be Instagram, and might be, social media or whatever that is, marketing. I don't like, it's not a judgment on what the mastery path is. That it's about the recognition that the mastery path is guiding you from something greater. And it's not about like tracking trends all the time. There is actually like the trends that are inside of us. This knowing that when we're listening to our lives and we're following that alignment of what we're seeing and knowing, there is no need to go and follow everything else and make sure that you're up to date with all the latest trends and blah, 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 because something deeper is trying to move through you. And I really like implore anybody who is in the world of entrepreneurship, or even like wanting to deepen with their own eros and sexuality, to let go of researching more and more of what's happening in the field, because I really feel like my peers that are making the 5 steps to blowjobs and all that are just meeting people where they're at and inviting them into something that is deeper along the path. And the deeper you can go along the path with whichever influencer really resonates with you, the more you're going to actually find the truth. And I believe that these videos that we're creating are just like hooking people in so that they can actually go into that deeper truth, and they can be invited into what's happening inside of themselves. But it does take time, and I want to acknowledge that. And there's no part of me that's saying it's bad to want to know how to fist people well or anything like that. It's not the problem with that part. It's just that there's something more for you if you're willing to open that evolutionary edge of your eros. And it's very easy to think that you can learn sexuality through the mind, but there's something that I see that is possible when you are able to use breath, sound, movement, and touch, and come into the body and listen to the sensations and allow those to activate and move beyond, and let the trance of the body or repetitive movements open them. Like, I believe this is why we have, like blowjobs, quite a repetitive movement to go up and down on a penis. And the same thing with like going down on a woman. It's like there's an experience of just like a continual rapid movement and motion And the same thing with sex, like riding and up and down or side to side, whatever the motion or the movement is, it's not about the technique of being able to ride in a certain frequency or something. What's actually happening is just whatever it fucking takes to get into trance. And I think when people recognize that and they get that breakthrough, that it is all about just like how much can I let go of my mind to get into the trance, that is the greatest skill set they can acquire around being a great lover and being a, probably presence as well. But like the access point to their own trance inside of themselves is the access point to activating trance when they're with a partner as well. And so that's really what I'm feeling a lot of passion and burning inside of at the moment, is like the possibility of people accessing trance to see what else is available for their eros. And I'm curious of what happens when groups of people come together to access that trance together, because that's really where I believe that the cutting edge of eros is. It's not in, learning how to give or have techniques around particular sexual acts, but about how to let go of the mind to come into the trust, that the trance will activate you and will show you what you need to do next. I'm excited for the YouTube videos that go into that depth and that share from that place. And I've also tried, and it is tricky. And sometimes it is like, something that I used to say after I remember driving home from that workshop that I was just sharing with you guys about, all these women walking out and me giving this big, like, potent mic drop moment of just like, if you're available for pornography, then are you available for the authenticity of intimacy? And then like breaking through and just being like, yeah, fuck, I'm sorry. Like, I want to do this and I want to go there. And thank you for offering your vulnerability in the way that you did. And in the moment, I was like, yeah, fuck yes. And then on the drive home, like, I was just bawling my fucking eyes out, just not understanding like how I got it wrong, and now I look back in hindsight, and if I could sit with that younger version of myself and say like, what she needed in that moment was to recognize that like that needed to happen, the rapport needed to break for them to really drop into the authenticity of the truth of their intimate connections with one another. It's like they needed to feel it was okay to be uncomfortable. And now I look, and on the drive home, I just remember thinking like, I did it wrong, and maybe my work isn't for these people. And something that came to me after that was like, maybe my work is actually always level 2. It's not the first introduction. It's not that piece. And I mean, I still have that experience nowadays. Like, people ask me to come to their festivals and teach, and they'll say, will you teach boundaries and consent or something? And I'm like, no. Not because I don't care about that, but if I teach boundaries and consent at your festival, I will teach them the level 2 version, which is nuanced, and how to be with the energetics of boundaries, and how to like trust your instinct and move towards what you want to go to, and trust that other people have their boundaries, which is not necessarily the first thing people need to learn on the process and the journey of their sacred sexuality experience. So I deeply honor my peers that teach boundaries and consent in a really simplified way that allows people to understand it in their mind as well as their body, because that is an incredible process. That just wasn't my personal process of doing workshops and things like that. Like, my journey was from the first time I ever ran a workshop, it was a sexuality workshop, it was a mixed gender sexuality workshop, and it involved genital touch. So I just think that my personal journey with sacred sexuality has been to really find those places where people are able to go into trance. And I trust the trance more than anything. And then it's been a process of like really framing and encouraging people to get really clear on the safety of what trance can create. And that's been a process for me, and it's one that I've got wrong a lot of times, and ones that I have now finessed, hopefully, enough so that I haven't had anybody have any experiences of shock or upset for a very, very long time. And praying to the gods that continues. But I guess what I want to invite from this podcast is like, if you are in that experience of wanting to understand more of how to fist people right, and give the best blowjob or whatever else it is, have anal sex in a way that is beautiful and amazing, can you invite in the experience of trusting that if you find that repetitive motion and slowness and presence and keep being with that and then grow your awareness to be with the trance, that you will actually find that you are a very powerful lover in all those ways. That's all. I really hope you guys have some powerful fisting, anal, beautiful experiences, and find this connection to your sexual shaman, your potent Daka or Dakini, your capacity to be everything that you want to be as a lover and as a sexual healer and as a human being. Because the more authentic sex we have, the more we can let Eros move through us, the more we learn who we truly are. And that is something to be excited about. Thank you.